I'm Lindsay Lipman, and this is Texas Voices, the podcast, a production of Central Texas News Now in Waco, Texas.
All right, Jackson. Let's see if you're going to start. It always takes a few times.
Norma Jeanne Maloney is a sign painter. It started with a curious fascination as a child and grew into an obsession. She owns Red Ryder Studio in Taylor, Texas, the same town where animator Tex Avery of Bugs Bunny fame and the legendary cowboy Bill Pickett hailed from. Pickett invented bulldogging, which is taking a bull by the horns. You could say Norma Jeanne Maloney does that too. At a time when technology made sign painting cheaper and faster, Norma Jeanne was picking up the paintbrush to varnish veracity from San Francisco to Nashville. But that's only half the story.
For those of us that stuck out the whole vinyl machine thing and kept painting and had some lean times, came to the other side of it, it's been life-changing. I mean, we're all so busy now that we can't keep up.
We began our interview as Norma Jeanne was working on a menu sign for a client. It had a 1950s feel and boasted bangers and trending dishes. I sat on the loft steps in the studio, kind of like sitting on a front porch, just watching and talking.
Which is amazing.
I mean, there's this great kind of vintage revival thing going on, I guess, and
Well, people want things that are authentic.
yeah.
And they like knowing that it's done by hand.
Were you doing this in you said you started in the 90s, right? 1996?
Started painting in the 80s.
In the 80s.
Yeah.
Because I would imagine, because I was just thinking about that time period just being difficult because everything just was becoming so digitized.
Yeah, I think the vinyl machine came out in the early 80s, and by the time I came on the scene, everyone was like, it's too late. It's kind of like that scene in Almost Famous, you're late for the party, rock and roll's dead. Like don't pick up the brush. But I couldn't help it. It's what I'm supposed to do. I didn't have a choice.
So kind of tell me about the tools. Is the other thing you have in your hand, is that to balance or?
Yeah, this is called a maul stick. I was a hand over fist pinky painter for years. This is how I painted. And it was a lot slower, but this is how I was comfortable. There's really no right or wrong way to sign paint. And then I was working on a book for these folks out in Nashville, and I had to do drop shadows on wet paint. And I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna get out the maul stick and give that a try. And then I was like, hello, this is an amazing tool. I can pivot my hand, I can stay off the surface. Whole new world. So now I'm twice as fast, and I can work in a lot of different environments and not have to worry about the chalk coming off.
So do you do most of the painting here in the studio, and why has this been a good location for you?
I do about 85% of my work out in the field. Red Ryder is doing a lot of murals right now. I used to survive on hard signs like what I'm painting here, and storefronts and window lettering. And lately everyone wants something painted on their brick wall, whether it's interior or exterior. They want old vintage signs and ghost signs, and that's about 85% of our business right now. So I'm rarely here, so this is really nice. I love being here.
So this is a pretty physical profession. I mean, you're up on a ladder, bending down.
Ladder, scaffolding, boom trucks. The whole process is physical. We do a sketch for the client, have some sketch meetings, agree on a design, and sometimes we draw it by hand, sometimes we send it out like this. It's an oversized print. And then we pounce it over there, which is a really cool process I'll show you. You perforate holes in the paper, lay it on whatever surface we're painting, whether it's glass or a truck or a building. And we rub chalk on it and pull it off, and the outline of the letters are there, or the image, and then we start painting, which is how they've been doing it for hundreds of years. Yeah.
Did you love the history, or did you know about the history before you started getting into sign painting?
How I got into it was, I'm an Army brat, and we spent a lot of time in the back seat of various old vehicles going around the country, and I was just drawn to old signs. I would just look out the window like it was just candy everywhere, you know, just the mid-century signs that I was seeing back then, and the motel signs and the color TV and Sinclair, Texaco, Gulf. You know, we would have arguments in the back seat because I would start them, what's the better sign? Just kind of obsessed with it at a really early age. I would draw album covers when I was little, and cereal box covers, and fascinated why Cheerios used that font, which is very odd for a kid. So I kind of just had it in me.
And then at what point did you say, okay, I'm going to go get some training, or I'm going to learn more about this?
Well, I never thought about it as a profession because I never saw anyone doing it, ever. And somebody asked me to repaint a window in Kentucky, and I thought, how hard could it be? So I went to the hobby store and got a little thing of model paint, which comes with a handy little nylon brush that's really stiff. And I'm out there trying to repaint on this glass with this brush in Kentucky when it's like 90 degrees. And I'm 3 days into an hour job, literally, and I just think this is the most horrible thing ever. And this guy comes up on a bicycle, and he said, "Young lady, are you a sign painter?" And I turned around and I said, "No, and I don't want to be. This is horrible." And he said, "I'll be right back." And so he rode off on his bike, and he came back, and he had a quill, which is what I'm using right now. And he loaded it up on a pallet and handed it to me and said, "Try this." And I just pulled it on the glass, and it was just like the gates of heaven opened up, and I knew right then, this is what I want to do. It was just this most beautiful feeling that I had this control, and just the way the paint came off the brush and changed. And I turned around to thank him, and he's gone. He was gone. So when the book and the movie came out, I was on NPR telling that story. Well, he's in Kansas City listening to NPR. And he said, "I think that young lady's talking about me." And his friends were like, "You know, you're full of it. That's crazy." Well, he drove down to Austin, and I'm leaving my shop in Austin, and this Subaru pulls up. It's got a bicycle attached to the back because he hasn't changed a bit. He comes out, he's got this, his hair's gray now, he's got a gray beard, and he's walking toward me, and he said, "Are you leaving for the evening?" And I said, "Not if you want to order a sign." And he said, "I've got something much better." So he went into his car, and he started walking back toward me, and it was like this familiarity, like an uncle or a long-lost friend. And then I saw his eyes, and I just said, "It's you." And he said, "It's me." And we just hugged, and I just started crying, and I said, "Thank you." You know, I get choked up every time. He changed my life. Calvert Guthrie was his name.
So what was his story? Was he a painter?
He was a sign painter and a calligrapher, and he teaches printing at a university.
Wow.
He's quite a character. He's very articulate and smart and well-versed in books, so he's an interesting guy. But yeah, can you believe that?
That one thing that he did.
It changed my life forever.
Yeah.
That act of kindness.
Yeah.
He could have just kept riding along, you know.
So cool.
Yeah.
Well, and isn't it crazy how you think about, man, you know, the things that kind of have to fall in place for those type of things to happen to direct you on the path that you're supposed to be on.
Absolutely.
Cool
Yeah.
to think about.
Which is why I never turn anyone away.
Yeah.
If somebody emails me or calls me and says, "Hey, I want to learn how to do this. Can you give me some tips? I answer emails or I invite them here. People have come from all over the country and popped in on me, and I've given them little lessons and just paying it forward.
Norma Jeanne has done hundreds of interviews about her work, but this one, she later told me, made her feel something.
It was the hardest time of our lives and the best time of our lives. That's what I grew up with.
It feels like you have so many influences, so many voices. How are you able to kind of channel that into what you're putting out there into the world, you know? Is that a complex question?
That's a really complex question. So channeling
it's kind
all
of
of my
like,
experiences
you're
into what I'm
here in
putting out there.
Texas, you know, and clearly you're influenced by, you know, the culture of Texas and the grit and the hard work and all of that. But, you know, how do you kind of channel your inspirations into what you do? Or maybe a different way of asking is, you know, who has inspired you?
I think when you're coming to a place like Texas, and you're not from here, you have to channel your authentic self because it's a lot. My family is constantly talking about Texas, and even when you are watching television, commercials are Texas-based. You know, even like Dairy Queen is like, that's what I like about Texas, and everything is the Texas truck, and it's a lot. You know, people are very proud, and they should be, of this state. But if you're not from here, sometimes, at least for me, it was very hard to find my way. When I moved to San Francisco, I was just another transplant. You know, when I was in Nashville, they were kind of my people because it was Tennessee. And when I got here, it was like, oh, you're from Kentucky, and then they would make hillbilly jokes. I'm like, are you really gonna make hillbilly jokes? I'm kind of in Texas, right? But there's something really endearing about finding your way here. Once you start finding your way in Texas, you get it. And when you get it, it's pretty sweet. But it took a long time. It's just it's a whole different animal.
Was there a learning curve?
Well, my kids got me a little book about, you know, how to make it in Texas, you know, like slang words you need to know and like things you need to know about tacos and Topo Chico, and I'm like, really, guys? Do you really think I need a guide? You know, I think I'll figure it out. But I think it's cute that they had, you know, the mindset at 8 and 10 to give me a book because they knew, like, you're going to have a hard time.
Yeah.
You need to get with the program. You're in Texas now.
Yeah.
You know.
But yet you fit in so perfectly because you are authentic. Don't ever try to be something that you're not. And just like you were telling me the story earlier, you know, when other people were walking away from hand painting signs, you said, "Oh, no, I think I'm gonna move forward."
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty. I don't know. It feels kind of pioneering. You know, a little risky.
Yeah. When I left graphic design school in San Francisco, in my senior year, 6 months away from graduating, everyone was like, "What are you doing?" And I had an opportunity to run this sign shop, and I just couldn't sit behind the computer anymore. To me, it's a tool, but I can't sit there all day.
Yeah.
I wanted to go make stuff. As you can see by my pants, I like to get dirty, but you know, it wasn't really that frightening because when you know something in your heart is authentically what you should be doing, even though I was hungry and I couldn't pay my rent, and there was some lean times in San Francisco, like it just started picking up momentum because I just never gave up.
So, you know, right now, tell me kind of, you know, how your work is going and, you know, what are you looking forward to right now? I mean, you've been doing this for many years, but what keeps you doing it day in and day out?
I think what really keeps me sign painting and painting is every day is different. I'm doing something different every day. There's a different challenge. And even though I've been using a brush for 30 years, every time I do something, it's new. So I'm like, am I going to be tripped up this time? Like, is this job going to trip me up? You know? And you get to the other side of it and you see what you've done, and it's a huge accomplishment, you know. But what keeps me going, I think, is that I'm going to write a book. And I can't use my body like this very much longer. I don't think I'll ever stop painting, but I've been brainstorming on this book, and that's the scariest thing I'm ever going to do, is to write my story, I think.
Tell me why.
Well, I've had some things happen in my life that have been profound, and I'm in recovery, and I talk honestly about that. So I think with what's happening in our country right now with addiction, that just painting and having a great time isn't enough. I want to contribute something.
Yeah.
I want to share my story and help other people.
Do you feel like, do you ever look for the why does something happen, and do you ever feel like maybe I have to write my story so that if someone else goes through that they know that they're not alone, or something like that? Do you ever search for the why of things?
Wow. When something happens and we don't understand it, I think it's our reaction to it is the reason. If you lose a friend and you wonder why that person got sick and we lost them and this person was sick and they're still here, there's a lesson to be learned in everything. You can make it a tragedy, or you can celebrate that person by telling their story and keeping them alive. So I just think that too many folks are ashamed of whatever they've been through, whether it's some sort of abuse or something they've done to themselves, something they can't recover from. We don't talk about it as a nation, and I just think that people need to tell their story.
So have you written word one yet, or are you still kind of like?
Well, I'm reading a book called The Art of Memoir by Mary Carr, who's a Texan. And I passed the first steps in her book of, can you do this? And she said you need to basically go into a room and write down your most frightening experience that you've ever, just let it come out unfiltered. And if you can get through that, and then you're well on your way. So I'm actually going to do that next weekend. So we'll see what happens. There's something about it. There's something about writing. Like, telling my story has always been fairly easy for me. I like to tell a story. But there's something about sitting down and writing it where you're more concerned about how it's being received. And it turns into once upon a time. Yeah. And I think everyone has that hurdle when they're trying something new, but it's pretty daunting. Yeah, I know I can do it, but I've never done it before.
But it's your next chapter, so you have to do it.
I have to do it. Yeah.
Kind of switching gears a little bit, tell me just about this town, and just, do you love coming into work in such a space that's getting creative, and, just the vibe in Taylor, seems pretty good.
Yeah, Taylor, it's so great. When I just did a job in Utah, and I took another gentleman, his name's Adam Davenport. He did the sculpture on the corner.
Yeah, okay.
He's a wildly talented young man, and we went out to Utah together, and there's something about, when I come back and I see that Taylor sign, I feel like I'm home. It's pretty cool. There's a lot of amazing people here. There's a lot of talent here. There's a lot of energy. And yeah, I can't wait to get to work every morning. I came in sick today. Yeah. If I lay in bed, I feel like I'm missing something. I should be in bed. It's ridiculous that I'm not in bed. But I love being here. I absolutely love coming to work. It's not a job. Sometimes I get tired because it's very physical. Yeah. And I think you know this by what we were talking about earlier. All I have to do is channel my mother working 40 hours a week in a factory and I'm going to complain about making a living with a paintbrush? I don't think so. No.
You know, that's probably the most Texan thing you can do, though, is just, you know, when you think about the ranchers who are out there every single day, you don't take a sick day. You just keep, although self-care is very important.
Self-care is important.
Too far.
It's
Self-care is
important, but you know, I'm the
but-
boss, and
Yeah.
and my clients are counting on me. And when I give them my word that I'm going to have something done on Friday, if that means I have to come in sick, I have to come in sick.
Yeah.
You know.
You want to deliver.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's such a give and take. You're creating something for them, but you got to have the people who appreciate that.
Yeah.
Appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really challenging for people that are doing a 9-to-5 job and have health insurance and have that stability to understand creative people and why we take the risks we take. So if you get involved with somebody like myself and you got to go on that journey, it takes a lot of sacrifice and belief in somebody. And I think we all owe a huge debt to those folks that put up with that, that deal with that.
Does your wife work at Dell? Is she like?
No, she works at FedEx.
Okay, I was gonna say. I was wondering. I'm like, is she?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
The working.
Well, when
certain
I
hours?
first got here, after I got off the 18-wheeler, I drove for Cap Metro, which was horrifying because you only drive like 2 blocks, and then the bus stops and you pick people up, and then you drive 2 more blocks. And I'm like, you know, in San Francisco, this was a longer ride.
Yeah.
I was picturing like several blocks because people walk there.
Yeah.
And I just kept stopping, and I'm like, I'm
Like,
never,
get me
this
off
isn't
this
driving, I can't do this. So then I drove a concrete truck for Centex,
Wow.
which was extremely dangerous and hard and really erratic hours.
Wow.
And Austin was just picking up
Yeah.
the economy, so lots
You
of
would never
pouring
even think about
concrete.
that. Yeah.
It's a hard job. And she just looked at me one day and said, "You're miserable. I just got my bonus from work, and I want you to have it, and I want you to start Red Ryder again, because that's where your heart is." So, and it was lean.
Yeah.
There was 2 years there where we were, you know, doing the calculator thing at the grocery store.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I know all about that.
Because you don't want to get in line and not have enough
No.
money. That's
No.
I've done that before.
Or
It's
be
just like that
"Oh, crap, hope the rent check
scene
goes
in
through."
Terms of Endearment where like she's putting everything back but the kid's candy bar, you know, and you're just
Yeah.
like, oh God, I don't want to go there. But yeah.
It's not fun, but it does build a character. I mean, it puts you in a position where you can relate to all kinds of people because you've been there,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. And I certainly appreciate every gift I've been given.
Texas Voices features the artists, musicians, and creatives in our great state. Subscribe to the podcast for new episodes or watch Central Texas News Now on Roku.